2022 was a year full of delays. Hardly any of the major games announced for this year actually made it out the door. But that's not to say there weren't some bright spots. Elden Ring, God of War Ragnarok, they were main standouts, but there was also a good number of absolutely atrocious launches this year as well. In a year where most of the main hype trains were delayed, the bad games, they stung a little more. And in this video today, we're going to talk about 10 of the absolute worst games of 2022. Welcome to Chaos Extras. So you let me know which of these kind of stole your money. Let's be real. Drop a like. And we kick things off at number 10, a game you probably didn't even play, Zorro the Chronicles. How many of you even know who Zorro is? He was created in the early 1900s, one of the original fictional crime fighters. He was a boss. There was a couple movies about him in the late 90s starring Antonio Banderas, and they were pretty good. In June of last year, there was a new Zorro video game that was apparently based on a TV series that I've never heard of, but all I know is this thing completely missed the mark of being a good Zorro experience. If your standard rushed-out 3D action platformer without any charm, no action, no wit, and that's what you would expect from Zorro if you've ever seen it. It wasn't even a Zorro game. It felt outdated. If this thing came out on the PS2, maybe it would have got better reception. But with a 49 critic score on Metacritic, I think it's safe to put it on today's list. And again, if you haven't watched the Zorro movies with Antonio Banderas, you should. They actually hold up extremely well. At number 9, Blade Runner Enhanced Edition. I just can't get into the Blade Runner universe, even after watching the latest movie. I just can't. Back in 97, there was a point-and-click adventure game based on the classic movie Blade Runner. It was developed by Westwood Studios. This was actually a really good game and had some nice ideas and a respectful continuation of the movie's concepts. In 2022, we got an enhanced edition. You heard me right, 97 to 2022. And there's probably a good reason as to why you probably didn't hear about it. It did the classic remaster thing where the new graphics actually look worse than the original, and many of the problems that the first game had, they were still there. Blade Runner Enhanced Edition is sitting with a 52 critic score and a 4.8 user score on Metacritic, which is a far cry from the original game's reception, and that makes it one of the worst reviewed games of the year. Just play the original. Avoid this one. I don't really understand why stuff like this keeps happening, but it does. At number 8, Lego Brawls. The Lego games are pretty consistent. Now, they may be a tad repetitive, and they're certainly not everybody's cup of tea, but it's very rare now that you go into a Lego game that's actually bad. Unfortunately, Lego Brawls decided to change that with a completely pointless platform fighter seemingly designed to compete with Super Smash Bros. Without any actual charm or fun factor to carry it to the finish line. Just in case you didn't understand why it was so bad, it came out on mobile devices in 2019, then it was ported to PC and consoles in late 2022. The full version of the game, it's a joke. You could tell the developers just ported the mobile version without doing much adjusting for new hardware. The controls are pretty janky, there's no content. The gameplay, it just feels random and wacky instead of controlled and precise like combat platform fighters should be, right? Also, Lego Brawls? Seriously. Lego Brawls? You just straight up stealing one of the Smash Bros. Titles and acting like nobody would notice? At least make a good game before doing that. At number 7, Cobra Kai 2 Dojo's Rising. I don't know, actually I didn't know that there was any games based on Cobra Kai, let alone 2 of them. Turns out I wasn't missing anything, which is sad because it should have been good. It would have been fun. This thing launched in November of this past year with absolutely no fanfare, and believe it or not, it actually launched on the PS5 and the Xbox Series X right alongside the PC and Switch and previous generation consoles. I guess it's supposed to be a 3D fighter, but when you compare it to the source material, it's hard to see any resemblance at all to the fantastic show. It's riddled with bugs, technical problems. It looks like a PS2 game and has almost nothing to do with the source material, once again, aside from some dialogue, which is generally pretty good. If you're a diehard Cobra Kai fan, you'll probably laugh at it. It's one of those so bad it's good, maybe? I don't know. At number 6 today, Postal 4. Now, I wasn't sure if I wanted to put Postal 4 on this list because on one hand, it's bad on purpose. But on the other hand, it's really bad. The Postal series is all about pushing boundaries, going where no other game will go, but quality has never been the franchise's strong suit, unless you're Postal Brain Damage, which was somehow one of the best shooters of 2022, but we can talk about that on a different day. Postal 4 is basically just Postal 2, but in a new engine with some new features, but also some features taken away. Lots of bugs left unfixed for comedic effect, and you could tell the developers were trying to make it so bad it's good. The problem with intentionally making a bad game is it's impossible to capture that so bad it's good charm because you're doing it on purpose. Postal 4 may have some fun factor, yes. I know there's a decent number of people who enjoy it, but at the end of the day, it's a very poorly designed and maintained game. You can argue that's the point, but it's still just sitting with a 4.7 out of 10 on Metacritic, so it seems the community isn't quite as forgiving as the devs were hoping they would be. It doesn't matter if you say it's a joke or that's the point, because the game is actually really poorly made. At number 5 today, Mozart. I'm not kidding, there's a Mozart game based on the famous composer Mozart, and it has the same subtitle as an Alien vs. Predator movie. I think this is trying to be a 3D adventure game, maybe some kind of puzzler, but I honestly don't know what the devs were thinking. You play as Mozart in the year 1788 as he tries to solve a series of murders in Prague with 3D explorative gameplay. Yeah, I'm positive this game came out in 2022. Some of you watching the footage are probably saying this is a PC game from 2003. It's not. It actually came out in September of last year. Now, amazingly, there's only 3 reviews on Steam. 2 of them are negative, so there you go. It's horrible. I really don't know who decided it was a good idea to make a 3D mystery game starring Mozart, but that one probably should have just stayed in their wishful thinking. At number 4, Garfield Lasagna Party. Yes, once again, I'm dead serious. That's the title of the game. I really don't know who's in charge of the Garfield IP these days, but it amazes me that stuff like this comes out. I thought we were over the days of Mario Party ripoffs starring other characters, but we're not. Now, remember the M&M kart racing games on Wii? Remember all the Smash Bros. And Mario Party ripoffs starring characters like Shrek and the Nickelodeon gang? Well, Garfield Lasagna Party is a shameless ripoff of Mario Party starring a bunch of characters from the Garfield comic strips and cartoons that most young people today don't even know. It's lazy. It's pointless. It's so bad that the Steam community has come full circle and started spamming it with positive reviews that say things like, Garfield fixed my marriage, and Garfield is bigger than Jesus. If the Steam community starts reverse review bombing a game, you know how complete trash it is. At number 3 today, Crossfire X. Now, 2022 started out with a splat. Microsoft released their highly marketed first-person shooter, Crossfire X. What a name. It's one of the big first FPS games to come out on the new Xbox console. It was a big deal that Crossfire, a franchise that's extremely popular in Asia, was getting attention from Western gaming markets. But sadly, you probably know what happened. It's bad. It feels like something you would find in a bargain bin at the late 2000s, something desperately trying to ride off the coattails of Battlefield Modern Warfare without actually putting any effort in. The characters are bland, the controls were bad, the graphics underwhelming, the level design is some of the most basic stuff you'll ever play. The Xbox Series X version of Crossfire X is sitting with a 38 out of 100 critic score and a 3.3 out of 10 user score. Makes it one of the most absolute worst games of the year. I know there's some people out there who liked it, but to those people I say, just go play any Modern Warfare game and you'll see how bad Crossfire is. At number 2, XEL. Generally speaking, when a game calls itself epic in the description, it's probably not going to be very epic. XEL launched in July of last year, quickly became the target for countless angry YouTube videos, calling it out for being one of the worst things of the year. Now, aside from not just being a very interesting or unique game, it had bugs, glitches, countless gameplay issues that made it impossible to enjoy it even when everything was working properly. Plus, the PC version had a lot of issues with using a keyboard to control it, which seems like it really should have been caught during testing considering it's the keyboard. I suppose there's some good ideas here, and the devs' heads were in the right places. But the execution felt horribly flat. I don't think anybody would be upset if it had been delayed an extra year for polish. I wouldn't have. As it stands right now, XEL was one of the worst reviewed games of the year, and after roughly 6 months on the market, the Steam version only managed to pull off 46% approval rating. Pass on. Today, the worst game of 2022 has to be Babylon's Fall. It's kind of ironic, the name of the game. Perhaps the most hated game of the entire year. It was an action RPG developed by Platinum Games, the same people who made Bayonetta. Published by Square Enix, same people behind Final Fantasy and Kingdom Hearts. By all means, it should have been an incredible game, but somehow the exact opposite happened. The combat was half decent, it was nowhere near the standards of other Platinum games, and the progression was very confusing for no reason. The story was pretty lackluster. The fact that it's supposed to be a live service game that just made everything worse and a ton of assets copy-pasted from other Square Enix games like Final Fantasy XIV, yeah, we noticed, which made the game feel lazy. Upon launch day, the game couldn't even get a concurrent player count above 1,200, which is embarrassing for a Square Enix game like this, and the servers were scheduled for shutdown pretty shortly afterwards. So, I guess if you wanted to experience this game, you may have like another month before they erase it from the internet entirely. Do we really need a live service action RPG with lackluster combat and complicated progression? No. Babylon's Fall is Babylon's Fall. It's many people's pick for the worst game of 2022, and frankly, I agree. So let me know one game that was deserving of making this list that we completely missed, and I'll see you guys soon.